In this video, we'll talk about dotted notes. Here you can see an example. You have a dotted half note, so a half note with a dot right there. What do these mean? Well, before we get into this, let me just show you one thing that often comes up that people get confused by. Sometimes you see a note that looks like this. Well, this is not a dotted note. This is a staccato, and we'll talk about that in a different video. But the way to tell when something is a dotted note versus a staccato is in a staccato, we see the dot kind of vertically placed with the note head. I don't want to say below the note head because it's below in this case. I could also have a staccato above the note head if it's a higher note like that, right? But in a dotted note, we see them to the side like that. So what does a dot rather mean? Well, a dot is simply adding 1/2 the value. Well, let's break that down. If I were in a somewhat standard time signature of 4/4, then we'd usually be in a time signature like this, or maybe 3/4, something like that. We would say the half note gets 2 beats. If I just have a half note by itself, that gets 2 beats. Well, if I have a dotted half note like this, I'm going to add 1/2 of the value. Well, 1/2 of 2 is 1. So the half note gets 2 beats. The dot gets 1 beat. So this gives us a total of 3 beats. In other words, a dotted half note gets 3 beats. Let's try a dotted whole note. Not something you're likely to see. You definitely can't see it in a time signature like 4/4 because that's actually impossible to exist there. But let's assume that we're in some kind of value where a whole note gets 4 beats. All right, so this gets 4 beats plus, what does the dot give us? Well, half of 4 is 2. So a dotted whole note gives us 6 beats. Now we'll do something a little bit trickier. What if I have a dotted quarter note? Again, we're in the assumption that a quarter note gets 1 beat, and I'm keeping that really simple for now. If you aren't aware already, there are many, many time signatures in which a quarter note will not get 1 beat. But for most people, we start off in some kind of time signatures when we're first learning to play music. We're used to always saying a quarter note gets a beat. So let's assume the quarter note gets 1 beat. Plus, what does the dot give us now? It can't give us another whole beat because half of 1 is 1/2. So how do we give something 1.5 beats, right? In other words, that equals 1.5 if you want to think about it that way. Well, another way to write out the exact same thing would be this. A quarter note tied to what gets half a beat in that instance would be an eighth note. So I'm going now into flagged notes. Let's do one more here. What if I had a dotted eighth note? Okay, assuming that the eighth note gets half a beat, we're really testing your fractions here. What does the dot get? Well, what's half of a half? It would be a quarter. You didn't expect to do this much math in music. All right, how much does that equal? You really don't need to keep count of it this way. I think it's easier just to think of the way that I'm going to show you. But if you really want to get technical, of course, this is 3/4. Or you could think of it as 0.75 of a beat. Now, we never would use these terms. I would never be playing music and say, hold that for 0.75 of a beat. But what does this mean in real terms? What's another way to think of a dotted eighth note? Well, it would just be like an eighth note tied to a 16th note. Okay, one thing, if you want to test yourself, I'm going to give you one trickier one. If you want to answer in the comments, I'll let you know if you got it right. We have a dotted 16th note. And in the comments, here's the question I want you to answer me. This would be the equivalent of a 16th note tied to what? A dotted 16th note is the equivalent of a 16th note tied to what? Go ahead and leave that in the comments, and I will let you know if you get it right. If you found that video helpful, please click the subscribe button below to find more videos just like it.